Hi, everyone, and welcome to another conversation in Conversation with FKM. Today, our special guest is Rae. And Rae is first and foremost passionate about assisting individuals find and develop an acute sense of purpose and meaning in their careers. And secondly, in advising organizations in their pursuit of a well-defined vision, a purpose-driven strategy, and a people-centered culture. Thank you, Rae, and welcome, and thank you for agreeing to have this conversation with me. It really strikes home with me, and I think purpose has been something that's been receiving so much attention everywhere. And I love how you're so centered and focused on this topic that I thought it would be great to unpack a bit about this with you. So to start off, if you want to add anything else about yourself, and then why the interest in purpose, and why have you centered your career around this and helping people, it would be great to get that started.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having me, Fatima. And yeah, you're so right. My interest, my almost obsession really does center around this idea of purpose. Is it a virtue? Is it a mental construct? But what I've found with regards to purpose is that when you're trying to achieve greatness, if you're trying to be a next level leader or just a really formidable human being, what is that virtue that will take you to achieve that? You may say it's discipline. You could say it's passion. You could say it's IQ, it's intellect, all these great virtues. And I would challenge that, and I would say it's actually purpose, because passion, for example, we always say we need passion, but passion is fleeting. Passion can come and go with your mood. Discipline. Look, once again, we all have bouts of discipline, but depending on the day and how things are going, our discipline can wane. What I've noticed, though, is that a person with an acute sense of purpose is able to really develop those virtues, discipline and passion and whatever it may be, develop it to the highest level so that it's long standing. And I think the interest for me really came about from young. So I've always been quite philosophical and deep, and I enjoy talking about purpose. And but then working with professionals, specifically in the chartered accountancy field. So I worked with young chartered accountants during the articles in HR for close to 10 years. And what I noticed about professionals such as CAs, but also lawyers and engineers, is that they have a lot of discipline, high-end discipline. If you at university, the guys doing CA compared to the guys doing psych, which is what I did. I mean, you guys were studying for 14 hours a day, and we did like 2 hours max, right? So I noticed CAs and all the professionals were studying big time, a lot of discipline, a lot of ambition. What I noticed sometimes was the inability to articulate a greater purpose for their life. What I did notice was those who were able to do so were able to go beyond just being an accountant, go beyond just being an auditor, and really achieve greatness. And it got me thinking, how do we help people start to articulate a sense of purpose for their life? And then we start going down that whole trajectory, which is oftentimes, you get the question of, Rae, so how do I write my purpose? How do I know what my purpose is? And I think the first thing to be careful of is to see it as something that's concrete, that you just discover one day and that's it. It is something that you discover across the journey of your life. You get pieces and you slowly uncover your purpose. But just that journey alone of being open to the idea of purpose, realizing that it's the virtue that drives you the most, I found really it fulfills people and it helps them get to the next level,
Yeah.
So.
And that makes sense, because purpose, I think, has become a bit of a trend. We work in a society that we eat fast food, we want fast fashion, we want everything on demand and right now. That I sometimes feel like you're saying, that true meaning of what purpose is. We want a fast reaction to it. We want a fast thing that we click a button and that's our purpose. That at times people don't really sit down and try and understand what it truly is, whatever pops in. Or coaching has become a trend. And I coach and I get many people, and in their first session, it's like, so can you help me identify what's my purpose? And I can help navigate that journey, but I can't help them to define that. So what advice would you give to people not to fall into this trap or this illusion? I like to call it into, an illusion.
So
My
good.
purpose was at a certain point to become a CA, but a CA is for a certain part of my life. And like you've said, that purpose then had to evolve, because
Right.
what next? And that's what we sometimes forget. So how would you describe that and give any tips or guidance to people?
Yeah, I'd firstly make the distinction between a purpose, having a sense of purpose, and having a goal or having a vision. There is a
Yes.
difference between those. They're all good. Goals are good. Vision is good. You obviously, and like I said, you guys, you CAs, you studied hard because you had a goal of becoming a chartered accountant, which is an awesome feat. And it's a great thing to do. Um, but a goal is also something that you achieve and you move on from. I don't know if you know about this, but there's a phenomenon amongst Olympic gold medalists, a high degree of depression once they achieve their gold medal. Because if you just have a goal that's not rooted in a purpose, once you achieve it, you have nothing to live for anymore. So you find so many athletes that are driven, high work ethic, just like CAs, high work ethic, high discipline from very young. They achieve that goal, and then they fall into depression. This is a phenomenon that the clinical psychologists are dealing with to this day. So I'd make that distinction that you can have a goal, which is something that's more easy to write down. You can also have a vision, but even a vision is just something that's different. I think a vision can even be negative. If we look at Hitler, for example, had a vision to eradicate Europe of gypsies and Jews and whatever he didn't like. That's a vision, but you'll find that a purpose is often rooted in something deeper. It makes alive in us something that leads us to living the good life, as the philosophers would say. So I'd first of all make that distinction, and then I'd say to someone who's struggling with articulating their purpose, I'd say go through the struggle. It's good to struggle. If you can articulate your purpose too easily, if it comes to you just in one overnight dream, then it's probably not your purpose. Um, Quickly to tell you a story about that, I did some work with a doctor in the Eastern Cape, and she grew up in an area where a lot of people were struggling with breathing issues. So tuberculosis. A lot of the men in her village were coming back from the mines in Johannesburg, so they had different breathing issues, a lot of asthma, COPD. So from young, she just had this inner feeling that she wanted to help people that are suffering in their bodies, right? So through various bursaries and just hard work, was able to go to medical school. She qualified as a GP, and she started to live out her purpose, helping people that were suffering from disease. But then she wanted to get more specific. And so she remembered that she had a passion for people struggling with breathing issues, not just whatever ailments the body may suffer. And so she went on to specialize in pulmonology, a lung doctor.
Mhm.
And then in the middle of her career, she was able to help people specifically with breathing issues.
Mhm.
Towards the end of her career, she's now in her late 50s.
Mhm.
She went back to just doing normal GP work, helping people just in whatever ailments they have. So what you notice there is that this lady's purpose fluctuated between very specific and very broad across the journey of her life. And that's okay. That's a good thing. Sometimes we can articulate it in very broad sense, and sometimes it will be very specific. But to answer the question of how do we start the journey, I think, okay, so first of all, realize that purpose is different. You have to go deeper. I know in the modern times, people don't want to go deep. We want to be very surface level. And sometimes people say to me, Ray, do I have to do all this deep thinking? Because I'll often suggest to people, go deep, meditate. If you're a religious person, pray about it. Just spend those hours alone thinking and challenging yourself. You can't do it in a very easy way. You can't just, do some cool little model and now you know your purpose. It's going to require a lot of self-awareness. And so people will say, Ray, you're a deep guy, man. You're into meditation and all this deeper things. Can't I just work hard? Do I have to think about my purpose? And my answer is always yes, you can just work hard. You don't have to think about your purpose. But realize that you will always be inferior, not you in your value, but your work ethic at least will always be inferior to the person who is maybe less talented than you, has less access to resources, but is willing to spend the hard yards thinking and wrestling internally with themselves regarding their purpose in life. They will go past you. We see it all the time. We see people that are less talented, have less resources, but they get a grasp of their own purpose in life, and it trajects them past the person who thinks they can just work hard in life. Working hard only takes you so far. And then one last, story on that. I did some work with some young men out in Cape Town a couple of years back. It was an outreach program, men between the ages of 18 and 25. The community was upset with these young men. They were saying, look, all day they're just smoking dacha, they're not working, what's wrong with them? And so someone sponsored for them this work readiness skills program. And for about 2 weeks, it seemed like these young men had started to get a grip on things. They developed some discipline. They started to be aware of what skills they had. But then 2 weeks later, they were back on the streets, up to no good, smoking, whatever. So I went down and I said, look, guys, these young men are they're not going to be transformed by just highlighting certain skills they have. That's not going to create a transformation. What we need to do with these young men is do a purpose masterclass. And so we gave these young men, we started helping them develop a sense of purpose in life. And overnight, these young men were transformed. The look in their eyes changed. They developed authentic discipline. And so we really saw a real change. There's something that once you taste purpose, that it just really emboldens you with authentic passion and discipline and hope beyond just work hard or good work ethic. Yeah. Sorry, I'm going on forever.
No, I mean, you've said so many things that I will take you back here and there. I've been making notes because as you're saying these things, it's really hitting home. And I think if it hits home with me, it's going to hit home with so many others. I mean, I did not even know there was the phenomenon that you mentioned with the athletes, right? Yeah. And why I mentioned, because I literally, Ray, had thought my purpose in life is to be a CA. My world revolved around that, right? I woke up, I ate, I slept, I drank. In my entire family, everyone knew it was just focus, laser sharp, CA, that was it. Even at work, I didn't have time for anything else. I didn't even have a social life. Like, it was it. And I was so disciplined and so highly focused on chasing that I did go into depression when I qualified as a CA, because I then sat and I thought, oh, I'm here. There's the designation. Now what? And I didn't know. I literally, here I am, like you're saying, highly successful, job offers everywhere. Come and be an FM here. Do you want to remain? You can become a partner. And I literally sat and I was like, what am I going to do? And I didn't even know that it was a phenomenon, because it's not something that in our line of work we talk about or we discuss. We're so focused on the technicalities. And I didn't read as much at that time. It was just accounting, auditing, tax, and I was lost. I went through so many phases in my career. If I can share with you, I changed jobs often because I guess I was going through the flows blindly because I hadn't sat with myself enough. I didn't know what my purpose was. I had focused so much on a goal and made my purpose my goal, which didn't help. And I think that that is something that so many youngsters, even millennials, like at my stage, where I work with people who are sometimes even older than me as a career coach, and you see a lot of their issues, honestly, hearing you speak really stems down to what is your purpose. You focus so much on achieving this, and now that you have, what more? And thank you for raising that, because it gives us a sense of direction and also a sense of being able to uncover and sit with ourselves more, because this does exist. And I love how you explained. I mean, I'm definitely going to interrogate everything on the what's a purpose versus a goal versus a vision, because I think it starts with clearly determining those items that really, really help. You know, what is a goal? What is a vision? And then what is your true purpose? And a purpose, if I understood correctly, and I'm going to paraphrase, is something that flows, something that evolves, something that adapts as you go through. There can be many and various different goals in your career, you know, and no job, no career, no, even kids, even you know, the perfect family can't give you that sense of achievement and purpose. And hence you see with so many people, even though they may seem to have it all, they still are unhappy. And it's because as a society, we're scared to sit with ourselves.
Very
We're
good.
scared to listen to our own thoughts. I'm scared to, and
Come on, you're talking my language. Preach.
no,
It's so good. It's so true.
it's amazing. And there's a saying that comes to my mind that I thought of as you were talking, and it goes, when I sat long enough with my anger, I realized it was grief. And that really speaks deeply to me, because we're so used to superficial and on the top, that the top first reaction is anger. But if we sit long enough with our anger, we're actually grieving. And what are we grieving? And it's unpacking those layers that you're talking about. And we're not used to it. So to start this journey, for me, you know, I needed to pull myself out of this depressive state, and I went into a state where I was self-destructing, Rae. So I had to force myself to sit with myself to stop self-destructing. But for others, it may not be. You know, you have those who are actually very comfortable. They go through life, it's a job, it's paying the bills, and I'm happy and I don't want. And then there are others who want more. And then there are others who don't even know where to start. Some of us get pushed onto this path by default, or by realizing you need to change. What would you say to start off initially? How should people go about trying to, because it's painful, it's difficult. So how would you suggest we start off on this journey?
I think when you started now, you said, look, you were so focused in the beginning, doing your articles and doing studies to get this. And that's good. That's okay. You know, I speak so highly and so often about purpose that I don't want people to think that, you know, you're a failure if you don't know what it is. And that's why I say don't be too hard on yourself. And I think sometimes the CA personality does want to sit down one day and write it down, and there's my purpose, put it on the wall. And I think that a multifaceted approach is okay. It's okay to write something down. That gets the creative juices going. All I'm saying is don't leave it at that. Don't decide what your purpose is and then close the door on it and you've now got it, and then you'll look at it every 5 years when you look at your 5-year plan. I think it's something that you need to think about and meditate on daily. Purpose is the ultimate driver of human ambition. I mean, think about it. We are purpose-driven creatures, even at a normal level. So every single day, Fatima, you wake up and you brush your teeth as if you matter. You give your kids the best possible education as if their life has purpose. You already operate on purpose as it is. If not, why do we do anything in life, you know? So the fact is, purpose drives us as it is. Uh, Look, ultimately, purpose, when you go far enough, it becomes a very philosophical, almost religious question, and that's fine. But and I often say that purpose is like an onion. There's different layers to it. You know, at one layer, it's what is my purpose for today. At the other level, what is my purpose for my life, for my kids' life, and at the very center of it, what us philosophers and psychologists are really interested in is what is the ultimate purpose to life, and that's a whole different question, but very interesting. Um, And so I'd say on two ways approach the question. I'd say be driven, be disciplined. You have natural inclinations towards things in life. Let those be markers or clues to what your purpose may be. The fact that you were able to do CA meant that, there were certain indicators that you were very good with processing information. You had a mind geared towards business. As you matured, you noticed that you had an inclination towards people as well. And so now you do a lot more people-orientated work. And all of these are little signboards in your life trying to give you a picture of the mosaic of what your purpose is. So I'd say be open to that. And that once again requires self-awareness, being open to self. And then I'd say the deeper side is very important. So I'd say, number one, write it down. It could be very wrong. You may change it in 3 days. You may change it in 5 years. But have a purpose statement. Simon Sinek, who wrote the book about Start With Why, he's got a nice formula of writing down your purpose statement. I'm actually send it to you. I don't have it with me right now, but if you just Google Simon Sinek's purpose statement, you'll see his formula for writing it down. So I'd say have a crack at writing it down. But don't be too cemented in it. Realize that it can evolve. It can, like I said earlier, like the doctor, it can become broad or it can become very specific and will fluctuate across your life. And then really, 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 it's very, very important that what you said earlier, which is be alone with yourself, be alone with your thoughts. Martin Luther King said once that nothing scares some men more than having to sit alone and face their own mind. Why? Because in our mind, we have to face all the darkness, all the scary things that are in us and are in the world, all the evil, all the bad that is in the world. The way that we chip away at the evil that is in the world is by fulfilling our own purpose as human beings. That's how we become that light in the world. And then I'm also reminded of when someone says, so how exactly do I write it down? It reminds me of a scene in the movie Dead Poet Society with Robin Williams, where there's a scene where he's the English teacher and they're analyzing poetry. And in this textbook, there's a very methodical way to unpack and review the beauty of a poem. And Robin Williams says, tear that page out and throw it away. He says, guys, you can't methodically and technically review the beauty of a poem. He says you have to let it drip from your mouth like honey. I love that. And it's the same with purpose. We can try, and it is good to attempt to write it down, but it has to drip from your mouth like honey. You have to feel it. It's something that will set you alight. And that's the beauty of it, in that it's not just like a goal that's on your wall. It's something that you get little taste of. You just start to taste it. And similar to those boys that we were working with in Cape Town, once you start to taste it, it creates within you a desire to uncover more. And so far from it being a scary big thing that's trying to work out your life purpose, it's the most beautiful thing you can do, is to realize that human beings by nature are purpose-driven creatures. We operate on purpose. And we know that those who have achieved greatness in life have done so because they've realized that they have purpose in life. And even if you look at someone like Nelson Mandela, I know it's a cliche example, but a purpose allows us to withstand a lot of attack and a lot of hardship in life. Nelson Mandela wasn't a particularly strong man. I mean, there was nothing that was huge about him, yet he underwent the most brutal of attacks, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Why was he able to rise above that and not let it bring him down? Because he had a deep sense of purpose. In his case, the emancipation of his people. And there's a great quote by Viktor Frankl. It's actually somebody else who said it, but he spoke more about it. That says, those who have a why to live, those who have a, how does it go again? Yeah, those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how. So those who have a purpose can deal with any question of how you're going to do it. Sorry, I'm not giving you the concrete answers as to how do you really get to your purpose, but I'm trying to give you some.
No, this helps. As you've explained it, and as I've walked bits of this journey, It is exactly what you said. It's not a concrete answer. And each and every one of us arrives at what our purpose is in a different way. I've never spoken or seen two people who've arrived at their purpose in the same manner, because we're all such complex creatures, naturally driven by purpose, as you're saying. You have to work within yourself and with yourself.
Very good.
And we're shaped by so many different realities, so many different perceptions, that it's so different. But the tips and the guidance that you're giving, I think is really, really useful, because it helps for people to understand. I mean, the only thing I'd add is, like you're saying, when it drips from your mouth, you know you've hit your purpose. It's that feeling, it's like a fire burning inside that you cannot dim, even on the darkest moment. And when I do something that I absolutely detest, that fire in me keeps me going, and I can bear the many hows because I know the why. And
Right.
my nature has changed on certain things. Even my husband will say, this used to annoy the crap out of you before, and now you're so, oh, whatever, it's not even bugging you. And I'm like, I've evolved. I now know there's a great purpose. And it is that deep journey that you're talking about. Another item that you mentioned, and I've made a note of it because I think it's so important. Working hard takes you only so far. You know, we have glamorized the grind and glamorized working at all odd hours, and it's great. And look, I've done it. I've been there, done that, and it only takes me so far. It only took me so far. I can't crack above that without knowing what my purpose was, without knowing what I needed to do, and without people, right? And people appreciate the hard work that you do, but it ends at a certain point, whether it be as an entrepreneur, whether it be as a corporate worker, etc. Even in a corporate environment, people, and I've seen it a lot, I don't know whether you have, the person who gets the promotion isn't necessarily always the hard worker.
Right.
And that is, and that speaks to this again, because hard work gets you to a certain point. We have to evolve past that, and we have to understand. And the promotions and the rankings and the entrepreneurs also, they have to work hard to a certain point, but it only gets you so far. I mean, I've worked in corporate, I'm in corporate now, and I ran my own business. And Ray, for 3 months, I sat on my high horse and I didn't do one sale. Okay. Because I was stubborn and I was stuck, and that this is it. I am here. I have arrived. I've got all of these great talents, and people come to me. I don't need to go. I don't need to adapt. Why should I? Because here I am.
Sure.
And you know, that makes you realize the world doesn't work like that, and life doesn't work like that. And that teaches you. And I really wanted to unpack this a bit more with you, because I work with and I see so many people who feel, because I work hard, I'm entitled to it. Or because I've worked hard, it's going to get me everything that I want. And that is not the reality of how the world works.
It's not. I think, you're so right. And I think that, look, there are people who really do struggle with laziness. And so I don't want to pull away from the beauty of a strong work ethic and how important that is. You know, as deep as I am, I do tell people sometimes, you just have to Nike, just do it sometimes. There's so work ethic is so important. But you're right, some people use it as a bit of a crutch. It's a bit of a let me keep myself as busy as possible so I don't almost have to face the deeper side of life. That's what some people, that's their coping mechanism, is hard work. The family's falling apart. I'm highly depressed. I'm anxiety, but I just throw massive hours at work. And that kind of keeps me going, because that will just keep my mind off other things. So that is a problem. And I think the problem in that regard is that, so let's look at it two ways. You've got two individuals. You've got one who has got a very good work ethic, but uses it as a crutch or to hide himself away from what's really happening in his heart. And you've got the person who doesn't have a strong enough work ethic. First of all, for the person that doesn't have the strong enough work ethic, if you struggle with laziness, let's just be honest. I think that once you get a sense of purpose, you will see that it'll give you a real kick in the butt. There's no alarm clock like purpose, and it really pushes you to start becoming more disciplined. And I see that time and time again. People, they're just in a rut in life. They can't seem to work hard enough or work smart enough. They very easily get under the weather. But once they start to go on this journey of discovering their purpose overnight, you notice that they become transformed. I mean, their body changes, their diet changes, the way they think changes. So I really think purpose is a great virtue for people struggling to develop a work ethic. Now, what about those who are with an already strong work ethic, which we see amongst professional CAs, engineers, lawyers, etc.? With those guys, like I said earlier, I think oftentimes we're using our strong work ethic as something to show the world, look how hard I work, look at the hours I put in. I'm a go-getter, I don't let go. I work, I don't sleep when you're dead. I love that one. I don't sleep when you're dead. It's like, okay, you will die then. Um, but with those guys, I'd say I'd challenge people like that, and I'd saying, you're not fooling anybody. We can see straight through that. Maybe your juniors, maybe you're the audit manager and your juniors doing articles are so amazed by your work ethic, but they're going to qualify and they're going to see too that you have no life, that your 18-hour work days, okay, not let's say 12-hour work days, are just a cover up so that you don't have to face the darkness or face yourself. And so what do we do about that? It all comes back to what we've been saying was get alone with yourself, get alone with your own thoughts. Start, whether it's, you mentioned that you got away last week for some time alone, but whatever it is, I honestly suggest that people meditate every single day. Whether you call it prayer or meditation, I pray. Some people meditate, that's fine, but it's about being alone with your thoughts and facing the universe, because that's where you can really have those deeper thoughts of, hey, listen, 10 years have gone by and I didn't even pick my head up to realize my child is now a teenager. I didn't realize that I'm older now and I haven't taken care of my health. And before you know it, and this is how people have midlife crises, by the way, in the corporate world. This is why 75% of CEOs in Johannesburg are on antidepressants, which is not a bad thing. Medication is good, and I suggest we use it, but it shouldn't be something that is just a given for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
So with that work ethic, you raise a very important point, and I think it comes back to start to uncover your purpose. That'll make you realize that there are bigger things in life than just your audit report that's due in 2 days or whatever it may be that you're busy with. And then something to help you with that is really start to meditate. I suggest to people 20 minutes every single day. I don't care how busy you are. And I've got a method for breaking that down into what you need to do for at least 3 minutes, because people struggle with meditation because, we sit down and we try empty ourselves and not think about our day. And then the next thought is, oh, look at that little birdie over there, or what am I going to have for lunch?
Yes.
But I always tell people persist, because that first 10 minutes or that first 15 minutes, your mind will calm down after that. And then you'll notice you'll enter into the space where there really is the chance to experience great joy, great inner healing. And I'd say the first thing to do when you start meditating there, is it okay? So I'm jumping onto meditation.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Go ahead. Yes, I was going to ask, so it's
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah. Which is I'd say the first thing you want to do is just try, clear your mind. Don't fight your thoughts, just let them come and easily go. And then I'd say, don't focus on yourself yet. I want you to focus firstly on your loved ones, your parents, your kids, your wife, your husband, anybody that's very close to you. Picture them and their happiness. So if you have kids, just picture that heartwarming moment when you see your kids smiling. When you see them, they've gone through a bad day and now they're happy, they've overcome that, they've done something good. Why do we do that? It's because it softens our hearts. It really gets us into a softer space in our minds. We can just calm down, because oftentimes we're so wound up from the day, from the fight at work or the sale that didn't close or whatever it may be. We need something just to soften us, and our loved ones do that. The next thing is I want you to picture yourself as a younger version of yourself. And this is quite hard, which is to think of yourself and some of the struggles that you went through as a younger person. Maybe you struggled with insecurity. Maybe people didn't believe in you. And almost face those feelings of almost insecurity, but then see how far you've come. And when I say see, I'm talking about your mind's eye, because remember, now you found a quiet place. You're sitting alone by yourself. You've tried to minimize distractions. You've switched the TV off and the laptop off. And you have to be militant about that, right? I don't forget about emails. Switch your phone off. If you've got someone to maybe an emergency, tell them, listen, for the next 20 minutes or 25 minutes, I'm meditating. Anyway, so now you're picturing yourself and through the things you've gone through. What does that do? That makes our heart soften towards ourselves, because sometimes we're very hard on ourselves. And in our mind's eye, in our mind's eye, if we can picture just the hardships we've gone through and how we've overcome them, it once again softens ourselves towards ourselves to not be so hard on ourselves, because we do need to love ourselves. You can't discover your purpose and your brilliance in life if you have issues with yourself. And then for the so between those two things, that really softens yourself. And then what I want you to do for the last 10 minutes, and this is the really difficult part, but by now your mind should be calmer, you should be, even your breathing will have slowed down. I want you to try not to think about anything. You really have to empty your mind, because our mind's on this constant go, 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 go. Now, it's actually technically impossible not to think about anything. Even when you're sleeping, your mind is going. But I want you to be open to the world and just open to the universe. For a religious person like me, it's open to God. But if you're not a religious person, you're just open to the world and the beauty that's around you. And that you'll notice as your mind starts to calm down, just little feelings of, hey, this is okay, life is okay. I'm going to discover the next answer will be made available to me. That is a beautiful moment where it's an intimate time with yourself, where you're just empty and you're open to the world of possibility. And that's often where things that we're struggling with get unwinded, in those meditation moments. If you're on holiday, like when you went on vacation, if you can do it like for an hour, that's even better. I know it's hard to find an hour, but it's in those moments that you start to get these little hints of your purpose. And then after your meditation, meditation time, remember to keep a journal and to try write it down. Write down some of the things that struck you, some of the feelings you felt. And then those will, if you let those trickle down, those will become more of action points. Okay, so I just had this lady, so by the way, this lady who was the doctor, she, in her meditation, just had this heart for people suffering. And her heart would become fulfilled with, how do I help people suffering? And then when she wrote it down afterwards, she'd write down, look, in my prayer time or in my meditation time, I had this overwhelming sense of compassion. What does that mean? That means I could study to become a doctor. What do I need to study to be a doctor? I need to get good marks in this. So it does become more actionable, but it's top down. It can't be bottom up. You have to first let the deep side strike you, and then that'll lead to more actionable points.
Yes. I mean, that's brilliant. I've dabbled with meditation here and there, and you are right. It's so hard to reach that third point where you're not thinking. But Rae, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try your method, and I'll give updates on how that's doing, because
please do.
it really seems interesting. One other item that you touched, and we spoke bits and pieces about it earlier as well, is about sitting with ourselves holistically, who we are. And I love what I always say to everyone is, you are your first customer. How are you going to serve others if you can't serve yourself? I mean, we are so used to putting on different masks and pretending. And you touched on it, you mentioned the word authentic. We cannot be authentic in how we're serving others if we can't help ourselves first. It's not selfish to do that, but the best way to be of service to others is to serve yourself first. And that comes with the knowledge that we all have darkness in us. It's how we have been created. There's light and there's dark. There's goodness and there's badness. it's about, I love the story of the two wolves, because it's within us, but who are you feeding? And by denying that that is in you, you're just growing that, because the fear will then overcome you. But accepting and knowing holistically it's part of who you are, it can help lighten that journey and that burden, because it is who we are. There's no denying our nature. And society and how we've been brought up, I've also been brought up in a religious space, is it's bad and your thoughts are bad and you can't talk about this and you can't think about, but it's natural. And I have come to accept a lot of it by accepting it's part of who I am. I can't change that, but I can be mindful about what I'm doing, and I can accept who I am fully, because that's how I can accept others. That has worked for me. What are your thoughts on a bit in terms of that, and for people struggling, denying or not wanting to come face to face with the reality of who we are holistically as complex creatures?
Yeah, I think it's a bit. Sorry, I've lost my heater. My feet are getting cold. There we go. It's on again. Nothing worse than trying to have a conversation with cold feet.
Yes.
No, you're so right. I think it comes back to, we said that word, and unfortunately the word authentic has also become a buzzword. Just like what's the other one? Growth mindset. Everyone's on about a growth mindset nowadays. You cannot have a growth mindset unless you're aware of your purpose. Take it out of your values chart or whatever until your staff have a sense of purpose with a company. By the way, purpose is important for corporates as well. The only way you'll build loyalty in your people to you is not by just giving them a good pay raise. That'll only work for a short while. Having bean bags and nice coffee machine will work for a while. If they believe in your purpose as an organization, they will become loyal to you. So get off these buzzword trains, growth mindset and authenticity, unless they're rooted in purpose. Back to your question. So I'm going on rants now. No, I think it's about being authentic with yourself and not trying. And you can't live a life of purpose unless you're authentic with yourself. And you said it's true. The darkness is in all of us. One day when we get beyond this life, maybe we'll understand why. But as long as we are on this earth, the fact is there is yin and yang, there is good and there's evil in all of us. And how do we minimize that? So how do we enlarge our positive effect in the world and minimize those things that are dark within us? And even if it's not a darkness that affects the world, but even if it just affects us, I think, for example, something that many people are to talk about is insecurity, the imposter syndrome that we all have. Like, am I good enough to be here? I see so many people sitting around tables. And not just young people anymore, but like even middle-aged people in their careers sitting around tables trying to use the biggest words to impress other people in a corporate environment, and that just stems to insecurity, and that's a part of the darkness. And when we have that insecurity, we can't be our authentic selves, which means we can't give the team, our business, our corporation, the best of ourselves. And that ultimately leads to not fulfilling our purpose. And what does not fulfilling your purpose lead to? It leads to, at the end of your life, deep insecurities. When you lie on your deathbed one day, you want to know that you gave it all, your all, that you did everything you could. You left it all on the playing field. You don't want to die saying, man, I was so insecure that I couldn't, say certain things or say things the way I wanted to. But I think you're hitting on a point of self-knowledge, self-awareness. I'm reminded of the Johari's window that says that, there are certain windows about ourselves that we need, that, some people are not even aware of sides of themselves that other people are aware of. So self-awareness becomes so important. How do we develop self-awareness and therefore accept those negative aspects of ourselves? It comes back to getting alone with ourselves, spending time with it. And people don't want to do this because it hurts, right? It hurts to accept, hey, maybe I sometimes speak down to others because I'm insecure. Fatima, one of my biggest pet hates is on social media, whether it's Instagram or LinkedIn. You see these posts that say things like, if people don't believe in you, then get a new circle, or the people who left you, they weren't meant to be with you anyway. I hate those posts because it defies the truth of we are all guilty of that at some stage in our life.
Yeah.
That same person that's saying get rid of the negative people in your life is the same person who's being negative to other people.
Yeah.
So we can't just grandstand and just say, get rid of other people. What we need to do is show compassion and show love and mercy and grace. Once we do that, that will embolden those good virtues in us and hopefully diminish those negative qualities. But like you say, they're never going to go away. You made a very good point. We'll never become perfect in this life, at least.
Mm.
And so all we can do is tap into our purpose, which will, I really believe, embolden the good virtues and minimize and keep under control those things which are dark within us. And then,
Yeah.
like you said, don't try hide them. Be real with yourself about them.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Exactly. If you can't be real with anyone else, at least be real with yourself. And it's difficult. I mean, I used to take random sayings on every Monday morning and post that. And I've said I need to change that. I need to make it about me. I need to speak about how I'm growing. I need to speak about what's motivating me. And I've started taking my learnings and lessons and trying to write on that, to open up and be vulnerable as well, so others can see
Yeah.
that it's okay. We want to put our best versions out there, which is fine, but at the same time we have to also let people know we're also vulnerable, we also struggle, we also go through different things. And
I love that, by the way. That what you just said now is so important for leaders to show that you're vulnerable. There is nothing that takes away from your leadership capabilities than trying to act like you've got it all together when you don't.
Mm.
People are by nature not confrontational, so they won't tell you, but your staff see you as a leader trying to be all confidence. They can see that you're deeply insecure, deeply insecure. And once you're just more real about your vulnerabilities, once you're open to communicate it, you afford yourself a lot more loyalty from your followers. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yes, no, it is exactly that, because it comes out in the end. You can only bullshit so far, right? You can only pretend so far. Same
Yeah,
with organizations, same with leadership. We talk about these cultures that we want, but if you're not living it and you don't firmly believe in it, it will never translate into those actions. And you look at companies and organizations that are coming up and fastly evolving, it's because they lead that purpose-driven life and they realize that employees are what makes the culture, and they have to be honest and authentic about it. And you don't need to be apologetic. If that is what I want and that is my purpose, I'm not going to be apologetic. I'm sorry it doesn't fit in with what you need.
mm,
And that's okay. And that's what I've realized. I was so focused on always wanting to please people. I used to be apologetic about what I want. And now I'm trying to change that to say, I don't need to be. It's okay if our roads don't align. We can greet each other. Hi, hello, goodbye. Who knows? Maybe at the next turn we'll need each other. But
sure.
stop being apologetic about what it is that you want. Own it and welcome it and be vulnerable, be honest. I mean, this morning I was, letting someone know about how I felt about something, and her reaction to me was, "What? But you're so confident, and you're saying that." And I'm like, "Yes, and I'm saying that so you can see that confident people like myself are also people, and we
Good.
feel it, and that makes us greater or better leaders. That makes us more human because I can empathize with what you're
So
going
good.
through."
So good.
And with that, I want two more questions. I know we're running out of time, but you've mentioned a masterclass, and I know bits and pieces about what you do. Can you
Mm.
tell us a bit more about the masterclasses that you offer, as well as the individual items or individual tasks that you offer for people if they'd like to reach out, etc.? I'm quite keen, and I'm sure the rest would also be.
Sure. Yeah. So at a corporate level, I run, I spent 10 years in the HR team. So now I facilitate master classes on purpose, on leadership, on communication, um, mostly within for HR teams. But then also, I study psychology and I've qualified as a logotherapist, which is a form of psychotherapy, but it focuses on the individual from the angle of every human being desires purpose and meaning. So most psychologists who are trained in cognitive behavioral therapy will say, okay, we need to adjust your thinking about yourself, or we need to alleviate the depression, anxiety. And what we do as logotherapists is that we believe that depression, anxiety, all those things holding you back will only truly be alleviated if you can get a sense of meaning and purpose in life. So that's how we drive the therapy. And so that's what I currently do at the moment is I do that for teams. So we do purpose master classes. And then at an individual level, I deal with people who are suffering with depression, anxiety. And then something also slightly more similar to the coaching, which is maybe you're not suffering from depression or anxiety, but you're in a rut in your life and you're struggling to articulate that purpose. And I also work with individuals like that. That part of my business right now is I mostly work with young CAs in that regard. So they're recently qualified or they're about to qualify, and they're like, okay, so now I've got this big salary. What does it mean? You know? So
Yes.
that's where my business is focused at the moment. Yeah.
I wish I had known you when I was that young CA. It would have saved me long years and nonetheless. And I mean, it exactly talks to, I was very surprised when I met you at the Psycha event because, you go in there expecting all CAs and you are so used to hanging out with people who talk the same language like you, who study like you, who by default, I thought, we all think in the same way, that it was so refreshing, Rae, and continue attending those Psycha events because, like
Yes.
me,
Yeah.
find others. The other
Yeah.
item, you
Absolutely.
touched a bit on it when we were speaking about meditation in terms of journaling. Um, What's your view holistically on journaling? Journaling, works for some people, doesn't work for others. There's different ways, etc. Just a bit on journaling, your views, and if it doesn't work for you, any alternate. I mean, there's apps, you can,
Yeah.
record voice notes. Does that still qualify as journaling? What's
Absolutely. What you're trying to do is it's similar to what you're trying to do with meditation, which is to develop a relationship with yourself. A purpose in life is something that is deeply personal. And so you can't develop that necessary virtue in life if you are struggling to even know yourself.
Mm,
We all, yeah. So I think you can whatever works for you. So in the movies or oftentimes ladies, they journal beautifully. They've got this book and you're like, how do you do that? It looks so perfect. You like wrote this beautiful essay in 15 minutes. Sometimes if you see how I write notes, it's scribbles, it's point form, it's just to get some of the ideas onto a piece of paper, and then I file those. So, and also it can be whatever. It can be words. Um, uh, it can be one or two sentences about my purpose. Let's say I love investing, and I think
mm,
that my purpose has got something to do with seeing SMEs really flourish.
mm,
Write that down. I desire to see SMEs flourish. And it
mm,
seems very weird and abstract and a bit random to have that sentence there. It's not. In your mind, in your subconscious, your mind is working out what does that sentence mean exactly. So I've got scribbles that I keep, and then that I file away and I look at every now and again. And sometimes I look at it from 5 years ago and I say, what does that word mean? And then that same night I'll remember and it will take me back to what I was going through.
mm,
But then at the same time, I have gone through times where I've written like more journaling, like
mm,
this is
mm,
how I feel, this is what I'm thinking. But I generally write out ideas I'm having. So things that I've been thinking about or that I want to try, things I want to do. If you oftentimes people who are going through depression, anxiety, they say it's good to write out your feelings. So today I feel this. At 11 o'clock, I had an anxiety attack, whatever it may be. Um, but meditation and journaling,
mhm,
regardless of the structure. So I gave you my idea for how to meditate. It doesn't matter as long as you're getting alone with your own thoughts for a certain amount of time a day and facing your thoughts, not just thinking about other stuff. And then the journaling for me is the 1.2 of the meditation, which is just to write things down. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear because I'm also a scribbler. And then at times I think, gosh, am I doing this wrong? And there are times when when I put pen to paper, I can write pages for you, Rae. It's just the frame of mind I'm in. And at other times, it's pictures and it's just words here and there, and that's what's making sense to me. So
But keep
I'm
it. You
glad.
must keep them. Get a
Yes.
file. If you and some people don't want to keep it because they're like, what if someone finds this? If I pass away, God forbid, and someone sees this, I'll be so embarrassed. No, you won't, because you won't be here. Number one, and number two, I found a note that I wrote myself in 2013 when I was going through a particularly rough time. It brought me to tears to see how I wrote about it and wrote to myself, and it really softened my heart and then emboldened me and gave me passion to see out the rest of my day in a better way. So keep those things. Try to find a little file that you hide away somewhere.
I have a whole wardrobe and it's right there.
There you go.
But I mean, I've got all the notes. So I've got 3 siblings younger than me. I was the oldest, and
Okay.
they would write me notes and letters and pictures, and you know, I have all of it. And I pulled them
Yes.
out the other day, and my sister's like, "You're embarrassing me," and I'm like, "It's not embarrassing. Look at all the love that you had for me, and I have to show your kids now. I've got it from that
Yes.
time because
Beautiful.
I'm sentimental like that, but it also helps to show how far we've come."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've got a whole wardrobe, a whole cupboard there. My husband at times hates it, and I'm like, listen, I can't let go of these things.
Yeah. No, I love people who are sentimental, man. It's just such a soft heart and such a love for life and the different stages we go through in our life. They're all meaningful. Remember, your life is a big map of meaning. You want it to fill up with as much meaningful moments as you can. That's how you die happy one day at a very old age, God willing.
Last question. If you
Yeah,
had to recommend one book for someone to read, one book, what would it be, Rae?
it's going to be 2. I have to do 2. Okay, the
You can
first
do
one is
2.
because at a very practical level, a nice way to think about purpose and your why is Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why. So especially a lot of people enjoy that book, and every single year it goes back onto the read list. And that's also very applicable to people in business, running an SME or. And then the second one is a book by Dr. Viktor Frankl. It's called Man's Search for Meaning.
Okay.
Man's Search for Meaning. And what's beautiful about that book is Viktor Frankl was a psychologist who was in the concentration camps during the Nazi concentration camp times, World War II. And he looked around and he said the people who survived the concentration camps were not the strongest, were not the fittest, were not the ones who had the most connections. It was those who had a deep sense of meaning, whatever that meant. For him, it was his wife. He was young when he went there, and he was only married for 2 years before he went into the concentration camp. And all he wanted to do was see his wife again. He loved her so much. That was his purpose, was to be alive for her. And that carried him through. So Man's Search for Meaning and Start With Why.
Okay, great. Thank you. I've actually heard of this Man's Search for Meaning. It was referred to in another book that I was reading, which I can't remember. So I have Simon Sinek's book, haven't started reading it. I will get to it and the other one, and then I'll post up
In
some book
fact,
reviews for that.
here's Viktor Frank. So
Great.
this is the same author, but this is a different book. This is The Will to Meaning. The one I'm telling you about, it comes before this. It's called Man's Search for Meaning, but this is another one, The Will to Meaning, which basically talks about the fact that we all have a natural will to meaning. We need to naturally tap into that. Okay, I'm done.
No, thank you, Rae. I mean, time has flown. I can't even believe it's been an hour that we've had this conversation. Thank you for making the time. I'm sure a lot of the people on my LinkedIn and my YouTube will find this very valuable, and we will keep in touch. And hopefully we can meet up for coffee sometime soon. Thank you so much for all your guidance and tips, and very enlightening. I really do mean it. I wish I had known you when I was a young CA. But hey, we're here now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I enjoy that. Such a cool conversation. Enjoy that. And definitely let's do coffee sometime.
Right. Thank you.
Cool. Chat soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.